Welcome to the Coach's Decision. Disclaimer. The views, language, and candor expressed on this series are designed to provoke thought and conversation amongst adults. Some opinions and perspectives may be unsuitable for those who are emotionally weak. Viewer discretion is advised.
Coach's Decision with Chris P. Reed, where we dive into topics each week that can help you or someone close to you get through. Many of my clients are skilled at the game of life, but there's times when you have to protect the players from themselves. There are times where you need a coach's decision. My top client and producer has decided to give you, the audience, a glimpse into his sessions each week live to help him navigate these moments. For this last session number 12, the graduation session, I would love to ask you, where do you like to speak about, and where do you see yourself so far?
So I want us to speak about appropriate counting, like what's good to count, what's good to not count. Like my brother Ralph Tresvant, sometimes you got to count me out, or sometimes you got to count them in if you new addition, because they ain't whole without the whole group. So I want to talk a little bit about counting too much, when counting goes bad, touch on those topics.
Absolutely. I think it would behoove us to, first of all, shout out Cleveland. And Cleveland, the person and the city, I guess, at this point. But you had introduced this topic to me a while ago, and it was revolutionary, to say the least, and so, do you remember how you brought about the topic and what? It started with too much counting. And it was a situation where there was an assessment that was performed, and I had an opinion. And then you said, "Oh, you doing too much counting." And so, can you give us how it was either given to you by Cleveland or how you interpreted it when you received this information?
So let me try to figure out the origin story. I think it came from a guy named Ron Banks. His uncle was around to the young fellas, and so he's the one that introduced it and gave it to the young fellas, and they just passed it around like you're supposed to do in a community. Absolutely. You pass the wisdom around, and I believe it was just something simple, where a young lady was mad because she hadn't received a phone call. So she said, "Well, what time do you get off?" And the response from Cleveland was, "Yeah, you counting too much." And I didn't have to ask no questions because I had been there before. Sometimes people think if you got off at 5, my call should be coming before 6. Okay. Like when you got off, that's when they already count your day pretty much.
Yes.
And he was offended. I was amused. I was laughing. And from then on, we started exchanging counting too many stories.
So this obviously translates not only in relationships, but in business and other things, because people have the ability or take the opportunity to make presumptions off of what they observe or believe should be going on in your life and with your time and with your energy and with your money and all these things that people tend to infringe upon as it relates to how they see you should be doing things. And some people fold. We're in a society now of people who just acquiesce and fold because they just don't want to have to go through it or hear their mouth or abide by the pressures, as opposed to standing up for themselves. It's not a lot of people that I'm exposed to, especially in this coaching thing. That's one of the things that I'm always talking to people about, is defending the moment and standing up for themselves and recognizing when based off your gut instincts, the Holy Spirit, women's intuition, whatever you have that you use to lean on, it's always telling you, hey, this is not for us. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be allowing him to treat us this way. We shouldn't be allowing them to speak to us this way. We shouldn't be letting people cut us off. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying go into your gamma rage. What I am saying is you can't let somebody kick you 5 times, because if you do, they're going to kick you 5 times. That's just the nature of people. You got to break off the foot. And the idea of counting too much, and like you said, it evolved to the appropriate level of counting. That is a calibration of understanding where you have to be in line and in tune with yourself in order to know if you're counting accordingly, because sometimes we can get in our own head and come up with determinations or solutions on our own. I'll give you an example. It'll be very generic, but I think that if somebody's ever had this, they'll understand it. And if the person that I've had this conversation with is listening, please be amused, okay, as opposed to offended. I know someone who has a tendency to run around in their head unchecked. And so what will happen is they'll have a conversation or an engagement with someone. Let's just say it's an argument for the sake of this conversation. In that argument, they'll say, well, I'm upset about this, and so I'm going to say this to the other person. but then the other person is probably going to say this. And then I'll have to say this. And then I'll be damned if I let him say this to me. And so they've had a full-fledged conversation that the other person wasn't even engaged in their own mind, and have absorbed the physical anger from a conversation that this other person didn't even get a chance to engage in, because they have such a vivid and active imagination. And they're, once again, we talk about too much counting, they're doing too much assuming. We talked last week about Kendra being an accountant, legally an accountant. And so she may have a pass to a degree to make assumptions or figure on somebody's behalf. But it's dangerous when you're figuring on somebody's behalf without their permission, without their authority and consent, and trying to come up with what this person should be doing when they get off work, what this person should be saying or how they should be saying it to you if this was not established up front. The rule, you talk about a mutual faith negotiation and the rules of engagement a lot. You do it for business and you do it, privately, personally rather. And establishing those rules of engagement, having that level of dialogue and conversation is so great up front to create a foundational relationship. I got to know how to speak to you. Do you mind swear words? Do you mind dangling participles? How dogmatic are you about how you're referred to? Some women get into the "don't call me out of my name" thing, which I respect and understand. Some women call each other out of their names as frequently as possible, which I don't understand. So it's all depending on who you're speaking with. But you also have to be able to adjust to understand this is not that person. Everybody can't be treated the same, because that would be confusing and ridiculous. You have to adjust to certain situations. So even with the understanding or the qualifications of counting, when you said appropriate counting, that's more valuable as opposed to counting too much, because it was funny until we had that conversation. I know that there were certain assumptions that were made when I would ask somebody out on a date, or I would ask somebody, a question or whatever. It's a lot of assumptions that go on. And unfortunately, we got to get out of our own heads and bring those thoughts to verbs and to words in order to have good dialogue. And that's where we mess up a lot, is sometimes we'll be angry, have venom in our heart for someone, and they have no idea. They have no idea what they did wrong. They have no idea where it came from. And we're holding that baggage. They say when you forgive somebody, it's not only it's for you more than it is for the other person. That's the kind of thing you have to understand and go along with when you're doing this counting appropriately. So, your people got any comments on that?
Yeah, we got plenty. So,
okay, all right.
A man got a car, a new car, was happy to show his woman, and the woman said, "Why'd you get a new car? The woman should always have the better car." Is that too much counting? Is that?
So here's the situation. That's too much counting as far as I'm concerned, based on that information at my disposal. Now, if they had a conversation where it was always, "Hey, I'm going to have and what is a better car?" I think that's another thing too, right? Functional versus opulent is the distinction. But what is a better car? I personally am always going to live better than I drive. The reason why is I grew up in a city and a place where people had really nice cars in apartments, really, really nice cars. And I always told myself, I'll never have a higher car note than my rent. And to my word, I've never had a higher car note than my rent or mortgage. But I know plenty of people who had car notes that was higher than their living expenses. But keep in mind, I'm not shitting on these people. What I am saying is, your car is an advertisement of your level of success or the things that you've accomplished that you can ride around in and more people can see. You're not bringing everybody back to your house. People aren't riding by to check out your curb appeal. Nobody compliments somebody's curb appeal, but they will compliment them rims. They will compliment your 12s when they penetrate. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's just kind of a thing that we've grown up to be accustomed to. And the idea of her saying, "What about my car?" or "Why my car is not better than yours?" For you to go and buy a car without her knowledge previously, let me know where your relationship is. You know what I'm saying? Let me know the level in which you guys are connected. So this is a bad question to begin with. You want to be starting something. Got to be starting something. You know what I'm saying? And once again, the greatest example of counting, and it's funny when you said that, the greatest example of counting that some of your viewers may understand is, and he kept asking me, "What kind of car you drive? I know y'all paid. I know y'all got buku hoes from all them shows that y'all done made." You know what I'm saying? And then, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he was doing too much counting on Andre 3000, but he didn't realize he was going through the same thing that he had. You know what I'm saying? He was living check to check. So once again, sometimes we get in our imagination that there's either more money than there is available, more opportunity, or we should be where somebody else is without inputting what we did to get there or what they did to get there. A lot of times we disrespect. You and I talk about this all the time. We'll run into people who we grew up with and they'll say where you work, and we'll tell them where we work, and then they say, oh, y'all hire it. And now you've just disrespected every degree, every class, every training, every getting up early, staying late that I've done to get to this point, because you feel that because we're from the same place and we're about the same age, you could work where I work or do what I do. If I'm there, why not? And it's not that you don't want to be inspirational to people, but damn, don't diminish my hustle by making it seem like, what I'm saying, you're not where you want to be. I'm where I want to be. And you want to get there with me, and you feel like I should just put you on. That's another thing with accounting, is that we always, create this situation where there's a level of equality that shouldn't exist. And I think in this situation, in a relationship, obviously, if she should have had a better car than he, she could have then went and afforded to buy a better car than he has. Now, let me say this to be clear. I do know relationships where people outdo each other in cars, and that's not healthy either. I know sibling relationships where if the person gets something and they are happy with it, that other sibling or that cousin can't afford to see them happy, and they have to go get it too. You got to hide what you get, because if you don't, they'll end up with it. And damn near the same thing. So it depends on, you got to know the people that you're around and how to approach those people. And then you have to be willing to defend or stand up for the decisions that you make without qualification. A woman's supposed to drive better than a man, base. Who told you that? That's a whole other. Where is that written? Show me the documents. When did you and I sign off on the fact that this is how we would align our relationship? And then we can go from there. But until that time, you just saying stuff.
And let me go to the chat.
All right, cool.
Let's start with Jasmine. She's saying that that sounds like a lot of work to have a whole argument with yourself. I was in a room before, and it was myself, and I'm not saying it's gender specific, but it was myself and about 12 ladies, and they all said that they have the argument conversation with themselves. And I was amazed that nobody thought it was crazy except me.
I can say, based on confirmation, that it's easier emotionally to have a conversation with yourself. It's much easier emotionally to come up and contrive puts and calls and thoughts and responses that you can then temper and measure, because you can change the tone, you can change the verbs, you can change so many things. But when you open that up for consumption from a partner or a person that you're having dialogue with, you can't control what's about to come out of their mouth. So I disagree with it's a lot of work. I think it's the easiest, laziest thing you could do is to have a whole exhausting conversation with yourself and take that emotion into the relationship or into the situation, and people just are unaware of what has just happened.
Daniel thinks better car is crazy. Kendra says, I have a friend who has a luxury car. His wife feels she too should have a luxury car, but right now she doesn't.
But,
So
but what is she
not
basing that feeling? I guess the situation is this. What is she basing that feeling on? And was there a equal input that she was willing to supply, sacrifice, and create to have said things? Is his responsibilities equal to her responsibilities financially from a percentage perspective? Is he spending 35% of his check on retirement and 25% of his check on taxes and 20% on child support? And if you do the percentages, how much discretionary spending does he have left over? And then if she did the same, because the math doesn't lie. The math will never betray you. If you do, just the math has an absolute value to it. And if you do that, you'll pretty much understand. And it's very sobering to see the math. And what happens is people qualify, well, this happened, or this break didn't go the way I wanted it to, or this lick didn't come through, or I got sick, or whatever. That's fine. Put that in the equation, because your output is based on all those things. Yes, you thought you were supposed to be here by now. You thought you were supposed to live like this and look like this and all these other things. That didn't happen. Let's absorb that and accept it and then move on. But I'm not saying that these women who have these ideas are just overtly delusional. They can have these ideas and they can express these ideas. What they can't do is get upset when those ideas aren't actualized because the person didn't add that or count that into their assessment of when they were going to gain these things. But I'll just say this very plainly. Even a woman with schizophrenia can still be good people.
agree. So what about the people who say you bought your child some new pants? Why didn't you buy my child some new pants?
So when you get involved in blended families, this is very popular now because the marriage rate is low, the divorce rate is high, and people like to be involved in relationships. Relationships as a whole has stayed on a continuum. So listen to what I'm saying again. We're gonna do some counting here. Marriage rates have lowered, divorce rates have risen, but there's been a happy middle where relationships have remained the same. People still, going out and doing it and Netflix and chilling as much as they were ever before. It's not that people aren't engaged in conversation and communication. There's not more single people that are lonely now than there were 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's not true. In fact, that's false. The reality of it is when you start adding these other variables, which are children or elderly parents that you take care of, or responsibilities with your job, whatever it is, you have to have an open dialogue and be vulnerable about how you see things up front. A lot of people have come into situations based off of traditional dynamics where we're a package deal. Then I need to inspect the package. I need you to tell me the deficiencies that your child has or may have, or something that may come up that would be surprising to me. I need you to tell me the baby's other parent. And do y'all co-parent? Are y'all cantankerous? What is the dynamic there so I don't fall into something? And then because I don't have any rights, I don't have any say so until you assign me said say so. And the funny part about that is if you're not willing to knight me as a proxy or a co-parent or whatever the case may be, then don't expect the benefits of a co-parent. Don't expect the benefits of leveraging the relationship to make sure we both have equal say in this child's lunch budget or this child's school clothes budget or this child's whatever. If that's what you want, where it's your child and you're gonna do it, and I'm okay with that, I wouldn't get into a relationship like that because it can just become problematic later because things change and then ideas change and then all of a sudden you never was about us and you knew we was a package deal. But if you got to have these tough conversations, I don't really recommend a lot of books, but what I'll recommend is a book called Crucial Conversations, where it talks about having those tough, candid conversations with people and being able to articulate it without being emotional. I think a lot of times we're scared to say things to people because we assume, like Kendra said last week, people are emotional or they're sensitive, and we make these assumptions of people's levels of sensitivity and don't give them the opportunity to have the first right of refusal. You want to make sure that you have this, hey, look, I have a kid. My kid is this age. I plan on, with all my heart and soul, my kid being gone somewhere when they turn 18. If they're not gone when they're 18, my next plan is to take care of them until they're forever. That's a great conversation for me to have with a woman if I'm getting involved and the kid is 12 or the kid is, you know what I mean? Because then you get a lot of people who have kids that's still living at home with their new husband or their new boyfriend. And this dude is like, hey, two grown men can't stay here. And this conversation could have been had a long time ago. So when you start counting how we're going to proceed and progress in our relationship, that's a factor or a variable that needs to be added. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, perfect
Cool.
sense. So if we pivot a little bit to dating, something in the conversation was said, what are you doing Saturday? If you don't follow that with a date, then they think maybe you're intimidated or scared. But what if you really wanted to know what they were doing Saturday just to know how they spend their Saturdays? Is that counting too much to expect a date after that?
I think that you set yourself up when you don't establish clarity. When you don't, the best thing to always do is to start at the beginning and ask questions. And so when you start at the beginning and you ask questions, it makes you walk away from that situation with both of you knowing what the hell's going on. When you assume or presume or thought, and then you start putting energy, effort, mental or physical, into something that that person didn't even think of, didn't even comprehend that's what you were talking about. If there's room for interpretation, then you want to make sure you eliminate that because everybody doesn't have the ability to infer. They don't have the ability to take it from here to there comfortably. They need to be walked, especially in the beginning. You have to walk people or spoon feed people. And I know it seems like a lot of work. I know it does, but it's a capital investment. Sometimes you have to put the money down first and then you have the operational expense because you made the investment. That's what any dynamic or relationship creates is you got to do the investment early, make sure that everything's established up front. This is how I get out. I'm a morning person. I'm a night person. I'm this, I'm that. You have to make sure that you have these things established because some things are non-negotiable for people. Like I wouldn't date a person that smokes. But as poignant as smoke is on people's clothes, some people freeze the hell out of their clothes and you can't really smell it. So all of a sudden, we had a conversation, you and I, about a chronic vapor. Did you want to share that? Or is this not a good place for it?
I don't care. So I don't think I had ever seen the vape come out before, but we were on our way to the movies, and she was like, "Do you mind if I vape?" And I don't know too many people that vape, so I was like, "Go ahead." And so she took a puff.
Hit the vape.
I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, okay." Then I could smell it a little bit. I was like, "Okay, it's some flavor, grape or something." Then she did it again, and did like she kept doing. So when I was willing to tolerate a couple of puffs, but it got on my nerves the whole ride. You sitting there vaping every 30 seconds.
Now, were you doing too much counting?
I don't think I was because
Okay.
I have a tolerance and I was trying to get to know her at that point. So if she was to vape a couple puffs, that's inside the tolerance zone. But when if somebody vapes every 10 seconds, I don't think it's counting too much. It's just a preference that I have.
Right.
So if somebody says that you're arrogant and condescending, are they counting too much?
No.
Or they just judging?
Man, listen. Judging is okay if you're open to also be judged. Like if you're willing to judge me, then I'm willing to judge you. And that's cool because that means that we are investing in each other. We're investing insight and perspective and everything into each other. There's a
Arrogance,
great
though,
philosopher.
are they saying you walked in with too much confidence?
So here's the situation. A great American philosopher, my wife, told me once one of the most poignant statements that you and I have ever heard. And that is, you can't tell me how to feel. There is no comeback for that because she's absolutely right. You cannot tell somebody how to feel. But what you can control is your exposure or your tolerance level. You can't, this is what you can't do. You can't tell her that you don't want more than 4 vape puffs per trip when y'all driving somewhere. But what you can do is not drive her anywhere thereafter if she's not willing to abide by your standards. And so you have to be very prescriptive to what you're willing to put up with. Once again, you let somebody kick you 5 times, they're going to kick you 5 times because some people just have a can't help it. They got a case they can't help it, and they want to get over on people wherever they can. They habitual line steppers. They always looking for an angle that's inconsiderate and not thinking of you. And you have to be willing to defend you. So if somebody says that they have an impression of my personality, who am I to say you're wrong on how you feel about something? I can't tell you how to feel. What I can do if I care to continue in a positive relationship with you is unpack where these triggers or where these symptoms of you feeling that way come from. And I've had, to be candid, I've had these conversations with people, and it was 2 things: vocabulary and tone. Okay. And what it was a semantics argument in the fact that you say certain words and you come across as all knowing and confident. The antithesis of that would be for me to come across bumbling and stumbling over my words. Like, what? It doesn't make sense that you want me to dumb myself down so you feel better about how we engage. How about you just get with somebody on your level and then we're both happy? It's okay. We talked about this before. Everybody's not made for everyone else. Sometimes you happenstance get involved with someone or meet someone and you realize pretty early on, oh, I don't rock with buddy or I don't like old girl. It's nothing personal. My spirit, my intuition, my whatever is just saying you just not my kind of person. You not, it is not diminishing to you, and it's gotta be okay. But you have people who want to have converting conversations, and I have daughters. I'm a girl dad, and the one thing I tell my daughters as much as possible is don't always like the boy that likes you, and don't always opine for relationships with girls if they aren't friendly with you. If they aren't, everybody likes you, but this one chick just won't say hi to you. This one chick just won't give you your just desserts. And you so focused on that one chick that you're denying the ones who have invested positively, emotionally into you. That is the dumbest math. Once again, that's bad counting. That's bad counting because if you look at the math, if you go back to the math, you got 17 girls that hugged you when you came in and one that turned and walked away, and the whole night you thinking of her. I'll tell you this story and then we'll move on. When I was young, my cousin said Stop being nice to these girls. Girls like it when you treat them bad. And the kind of girls that he was into did. I wasn't into those kind of girls. But it took for me a moment to realize, because he had a lot of girls. But then I was like, I wouldn't talk to them, none of them. They are not my type. That's not what I'm going for. So in the idea of what's for you is for you. But you have to realize what's for you and you have to defend it. You know what I'm saying? And you have men that prey on women like rosaries. And you just gotta realize this dude just is preying on people. This dude is just talking. Like you can figure it out if you care and if you're smart enough. You can figure it out pretty quick when somebody's just giving you lip service, because nothing speaks louder than actions. And so I think that when somebody has an opinion of someone else, that is always in bounds, especially if you want to stand on it. The Bible says it's better to be rebuked openly than loved secretly. Don't rebuke me openly. I have no problem. You know that you've been around me when people have rebuked me. And I'll be like, that's what's up. It's okay. It's okay. You know, and either they come around or they don't. But yeah, you can't be worried about that. You can't win them all.
So there was a great story of counting too much when a young lady was asked out. She couldn't because she had her young daughter. So the man went out anyway and had fun.
Yes.
She said, I dare he go out and have fun without me.
Yes.
Something like that, right?
Yes.
That's a classic count too much story, right?
In this instance, it's more egregious because he was invited to a church because he was doing volunteer work for the Urban League. Somebody there said, hey, do you have a church home? He said, no. You and your girl should come to church. He went home and said, hey, we've been invited to church. She said, I can't because I don't have a babysitter. He said, oh, okay, cool. Well, then he went to church and had a funky good time. You know what I'm saying? And so she was upset that he went and had a good time without her. And once again, that's absolutely counting too much. Or it's not counting the right thing, because the absolute value of his happiness should have been the thing that you prioritize more than anything else. But if you weren't involved in that happiness, and there's a lot of people like that. Great example, the man who got the car, and he obviously got what he wanted, got what he'd worked for, and was happy with his purchase. But she couldn't be happy for him because she immediately thought about herself. Immediately asked, where's mine? You know what I'm saying? It's like the teacher that said, if you ain't got no gum for everybody. And that shit works until somebody comes to school with gum for everybody. Now you get a talking to after class. Don't do that again, right? People say things, but they don't mean them. So you got to be mindful of, what are we really talking about here? What's going on here? It wasn't about him going to that church and enjoying himself. It was about, if she wasn't involved, he shouldn't have been involved. And that's controlling. And it's absolutely too much counting.
Okay. What about the young lady who said that the guy was not praying long enough when he said his prayers at night?
That's way too much counting. I believe that's a whole nother level. I believe that spirituality is an interpersonal, private relationship between you and your Lord. And however you get down with that is you and your Lord. You cannot get to that type of thing where, I don't know what the protocols are written anywhere of prayer limits or ending it with an amen or in Jesus' name. Or once again, man, when you have that much time to diagnose and dissect those type of nuances in somebody else's get down, you don't have enough going on. You have something wrong and you should seek professional help that may involve medication. Don't self-medicate. Get diagnosed first. Even if you do self-medicate, at least get diagnosed first professionally and then do what you need to do. Because you're not going to be happy. You're looking for sadness.
Man, it's so much, but we are at time. So how would you like to close this session?
I want to say this. We talk about analogies a lot. We've spent your sessions speaking about defending yourself and it being okay with you being okay with you first. You know what I'm saying? Putting your mask on first, things of that nature. And so as you graduate, I know that you have professional things that you've been navigating and personal things that you've been navigating. And one of the things that you were concerned with was distraction. And when you have these conversations with grown-ups, especially women, what you realize is the more in-depth the conversation got, the more deflection occurred. And so the key is for you to identify early when somebody's deflecting and how to comfortably and cordially get out of that conversation, because it means you know good. As opposed to, I believe you have had a history of entertaining bullshit way longer than it needed to be. And then you find yourself empty or confused where you didn't even have to ask these 4 questions. You didn't even have to go down this lane. But for whatever reason, you thought nothing was telling you it was going to end somewhere positive. But you gave her a chance, or you gave it a chance. We've had conversations about your cousin calling. And you like, I was just thinking that this can't be it. No. Once people show you who they are, believe them. What I would want for your people to understand, and what I think that you understand now, is life coaching is a gradual process whereby a life coach will help someone dig beneath the surface of their thoughts and beliefs and help them understand internal obstacles that they are creating themselves. You are the architect of your own misery. You are, if you go back and look, it started with you either having a wrong interpretation, or you assumed something incorrectly, or you just simply invested in somebody that lied. That happens too. Sometimes you have all the math together. You can show me all the, I don't give a damn about your paperwork. That person lied. And when it was revealed, when things came to light, they wasn't trying to start a business. They wasn't trying to do these things that you thought, that you were told. And you had no reason to deny it. You had no reason to doubt when she gave you the fruit, if it was going to give you from that tree. You know what I'm saying? You had no reason to question it because you had developed a rapport. But once you know better, you do better. And you have to move on. You have to understand and sustain your success and well being above all things. Because my mom said when I was younger, if you feel like you're a 7, I know you don't do 7s, but this is for your people, okay? If you feel like you're a 7 when she gets with you, whatever you guys build together or whatever you do, when she leaves, do not let her take more than what she had when you came, what you had when she came. So if you were a 7, when she leaves, you're a 7. Now, if she got with you and polished you off and made you a 9 or a 10, that's okay. But when she leaves, you damn sure don't need to be a 4. That doesn't make sense. That means there was some scale balancing, some inequality that was going on. I think that, having conversations like this and understanding how to evaluate different signals and how to evaluate your own thought process, because like we said, you can get trapped in the closet in your own head. You can have a telenovela in your own head, and it can be entertaining, but just don't let it be so entertaining that it becomes a kryptonite to your daily life, and it distracts you from the main goal. You have to keep the main thing the main thing. You have to set standards and goals and say, okay, either it's pass fail. Either I'm going towards that or I'm not. Say either I made this milestone or I didn't. Your life is built like a project plan, and you have timelines and milestones and certain things, and you want to smell the roses and do all these things. But I believe that if you can just slow down and take a breath and then say, okay, who am I trying to be? How am I trying to be that person? And I can't depend on other people to get me there. I have to start. Your definition of help is, hey, you can give them the story about your definition of help when it comes to loaning money if you like, as far as how much you got. Do you want to do that?
Loaning money,
Yes, sir.
TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So if somebody say, "Hey, I need help with my rent," like, how much is your rent? 800. Okay, how much do you need? 800. That's not help. That's me paying your rent.
That's correct.
If your rent is 800 and you need 3, that's help to me.
Absolutely.
Even if it's 8 and it's 4 and 4, that's pushing it. It's kind of help, but it's kind of like we both doing it. You just keeping the money at your house.
Right.
But yeah, if you get yourself far 75% of the way, then yeah, I'm willing to give that 25%. To me, that's help.
Right.
But people sometimes say, "Hey, can you just help me out by?" And you really have to do the whole thing. That's manipulation at that point.
I agree. And I think that, sometimes one of the feedbacks that we've received, or I've received, especially from these sessions that you've had, these 12 sessions. And so just to be clear for the people, I believe that as a coach, when you have a conversation with your client and they tell you what their destination is, you have a couple of sessions to realize, okay, can we make it there? Is it feasible? But it shouldn't take more than 12 sessions of somebody paying you or giving you their time and effort. 12 is 4 months. It shouldn't take more than 4 months to kill that thing. What we can't do is boil the ocean and fix everything at once. So for what we were trying to do here, that was easily done in 12 sessions. You were magnanimous enough to invite the world into your sessions. But I just feel like if you have a situation where you're constantly having the same issues over and over again, you're not curing, you're treating. And life coaching shouldn't be a treatment. It should be a destination and a cure. You either can run this fast or do this or do that, or you cannot. It's really that simple. So don't fall for all of that, perpetual coaching where you're paying thousands of dollars, months and months, and then 5 years later, you don't feel as if, once again, can't tell you how to feel. You don't feel as if you've really gained anything. All you feel is if you gained a friend that you pay, because that's not what a life coach should be. It should be your best friend that you pay a lot of money to. You know what I'm saying? And I know I'm hurting the game here and somebody going, cuss me out or whatever, but only a kleptomaniac takes everything so literally. So you just got to make sure that you understand what you're getting into and be over articulate in the beginning. We've talked about that. These are reoccurring themes. So if there's one thing I would like, for your audience to understand is what you were trying to accomplish. I appreciate we had this conversation and you was like, let's put it on wax. Let's open it up, because maybe I'm too harsh and maybe you thought that if a bunch of people voted against me that I would bend the knee. We had a couple of good conversations where somebody talked about how to be happy, and they were wrong. And then they talked about, the level of friendship versus acquaintances. And of course, we had the Adam and Eve conversation where lonely versus being alone and all these other things. And sometimes you take a step back and you open the aperture and look at the big picture, and everything changes. Now you can see more clearly because you're getting over yourself and you're looking at how it affected this person, that person, especially when you care about folks. How is this decision going to cascade amongst the people that I care about? The people that I don't care about, why they're not in the equation. We're back to math. They're not even in the equation. But don't allow for people to infiltrate the equation if they don't deserve to be there. A lot of times you meet a new dude and you putting him in the algorithm. For what? For who? That is not, no. This algorithm has a shelf life. Get to the end of that, and then he can be in the next equation. But right now, this is what I'm on. You know what I'm saying? This is what I got going on. And when I get out of it, this is why I say don't date anyone in transition. Let them get to a safe spot or on base, and then get up with them. But if they on the climb, or they're progressing in life, or they're transitioning in life, be respectful enough to allow for that. You got it. Hey, if it's meant to be, if it's for me, it's for me. Once you get there and you become whole, hit me up. And hopefully I'm still doing what I'm doing. And then we can go from there, because I don't want to distract you or make you change your direction or your cadence based on something that you feel like I've done that you haven't communicated with me. Once again, it's about communication. It's about articulation. It's about calculation. All these Asians is what we should be talking about as we move forward. So that would be what I would leave the people with. And for those who, it's funny that you said so. You and I have had numerous instances where I've gotten into kerfuffles with people who accuse me of being arrogant or condescending. And, to those people, I will say, won't I do it?
You don't care. What's up with the white suit?
You know what? It's
Listen to Frankie
Memorial
Beverly and
Day
Mays in
coming
the
up.
background.
So this is kicking off the summer, right? This is that summer, the music in the park, that kind of deal. And it was a situation where with Memorial Day coming up, the first summer holiday, I wanted to commemorate I didn't want to wear a black suit because this is not the death of these sessions or coach's decision. It is just a situation where there's a transition that will occur. It may be you, it may be another client. Who knows? I'm open for anything. But I felt like, based on some of the feedback that I received from people that text me personally, they really enjoyed these open, candid conversations and had a lot of questions and things like that. And some people have expressed interest in adding to the conversation. And I will invite anyone. We have a show that comes out every Friday at 9 p.m. and it's the edited, recorded version of this show. If you put the comments in there and ask questions, I'm sure that my producer will have no problem going in and reading off things that you guys might want to talk through or may struggle through. And if it's something that you feel like we need to actually have a back and forth on, we can book you. We can get you on and we can come on and have this conversation. It may not be live. It can be recorded if you are averse to that. It can be audio if you'd like. But I feel like this is something that I've been anointed with to kind of help people really talk through what they already know. A lot of times when you get to a certain age, you know what I'm saying? You kind of know. But once again, you've been distracted or you've been dissuaded or life has kind of kicked you a couple times and you just don't know if you want to keep getting kicked. And so these conversations are valuable to kind of help you unpack that baggage that we talk about. So we'll continue to do this as long as the people come through. Y'all keep in mind, we gain 100 subscribers every time we record something. Like every time we put out a session, 100 people subscribe to it. So there's some value in that. And I don't want to diminish that. But also, I know that you are where you need to be at this point. I would give you a certificate or or acknowledge or accredit you being on the way now, especially going into the summer. So this was a commemoration of, kind of like a wedding, right? Like now you married to your next destination. You're married to your sanity. So I'm like Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island. I don't know if you remember that show with the little dude, the plane. He always came out in a white suit to help people fulfill their desires. So that's where we at now. That's where we at now.
Any closing thoughts?
Do your
You
people have anything that they wanted to kind of leave us with, or anything that they said that might stand out? I don't. And anybody that's new, I don't see the comments. He, kind of traffics all that, and then he filters and comes and says, what's up.
I'll just give a quick shout out to everybody. Daniel Young with the he needs the rib tips. Jasmine sending a shout out to Maya Angelou,
Okay.
eloquent poems. Kendra, she has the problem with entertaining the BS too long. Daniel wants to know who sets the prayer timers.
Like chess, huh? Like you hit the button like playing chess.
Who else? A shout out to Sean, who's also present, and just everybody who was present the whole season, making it.
Yeah, we had a lot of good feedback. I didn't. You was right. I was wrong, and that's okay. I don't stand often, but when I do, I stand corrected. I didn't think that people would be into exposing themselves or being vulnerable in such a public forum. And we had people like Jessica, like Kigal, I think it was. I'm trying to just go off the dome with some of these folks. Chevy Chev. We had people that really kind of dug in and was like, no, Tracy, who was irate about the Eve episode, which we responded to in session 4. So absolutely. I love the fact that people find entertainment, in this. I don't know if it's necessarily entertaining, but I do feel like it's successful and it's constructive. And once again, it may seem critical, it may seem harsh, but I would like for you to just stop me when I start lying. And if somebody can say, well, this is where he lied, I would love to have that conversation. Other than that, we did what we were set out to do. And so we'll continue this. Like I said, please put the comments in. The comments stick when you put them in the sessions that have already been recorded. So anything that's already out there, if you put comments in there, if you have questions, concerns, anything that you think that we should be talking about or that we didn't get a chance to talk about, that would be greatly appreciated if you were to provide that to us. And if he want to put it out there, he'll put it out there and we'll make it do what it do. But other than that, I appreciate you guys coming through, and we'll try to do this again at another time and enjoy you guys being with us for these lives. So thank you.